Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tiki Bar. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Ryan Wiese. Ryan has had a long, illustrious career in sales, and he is now the Chief Revenue Officer at Nettenrich. He also is an Oklahoma State Cowboy and now a native of Austin, Texas. Ryan, thanks so much for doing this today. How are you?
I'm great, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to be talking to you. We ask everyone in the Tiki Bar the same first question. When you were a kid, you didn't know you were going to be a CRO. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to play professional sports like most kids, right? Including my 8-year-old son now. He wants to, play professional football. But yeah, I wanted to be a baseball player is really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be Kirby Puckett. I grew up a Minnesota Twins fan and spent some time in the Twin Cities as a kid and saw them win 2 world championships. And I thought I'd be the next Kirby Puckett. So that was the dream as a kid.
And when reality hits, what was the first paying job that you ever had when you were a kid or high school or something like that?
Mowing lawns. So my best friend from high school and we kind of cornered our neighborhood at one point. I think we had 25 homes. At
Okay.
25 bucks a pop back in the late 90s or mid to late 90s, and yeah, we kind of cornered the neighborhood and had a mowing business, and we were doing several yards a day and all cash. So it was good. It was good as a teenager.
So this is like a legit operation. You and this guy sat down, drew it up, and it became a job.
Yeah, W&W Mowing Company. We put up flyers and canvass the neighborhood, and typically it's we would do a yard, and then someone would come by. Hey, how much do you charge to do the yard? And then so we ended up getting like 3 or 4 kind of in the same little cul-de-sac, and yeah, that's how it happened. It was kind of more word of mouth. We did send some flyers out, but it was W&W Mowing Company.
Okay. Any moments that you remember of actually like running the business at that age? Did you have to go and sell anything to anybody or collect cash or something at that time?
Yeah, most of it was they would always pay us. We'd finish. Very rarely would they ever come and like inspect the work. But yeah, typically you'd finish and you'd go. They'd hand deliver your cash. We would knock on doors every now and then, right, and give our flyers out. And so there was some kind of salesmanship to it. You'd have people come by and just ask, hey, what's your price? What are you doing? So you'd have to do a high level pitch to them and this and that. So yeah, we were selling as kids, trying to get more and more yards. But at some point, then it became too much. And then with summer, you had travel and this and that. And I was playing sports, so I was sometimes I'd have to miss. And so my best friend would have to either do it himself or recruit somebody. So we had one of my cousins who was a couple years younger than me. He would sometimes get thrown in the mix when we needed some help. So yeah, we were sort of running a business, and at one point, again, I think we had 20, 25 yards. So it was a lot to keep up with when you're a teenager.
So that's legit. So any other odd jobs throughout high school or college?
Right before college, I worked at a barbecue restaurant in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right before I went to Oklahoma State. And that was just my first, like, I guess, W-2 paying job. But yeah, I started as like kind of like the dishwasher guy. And then I was the coleslaw prep person. And then I was like the
Mm,
season the meat guy. And then they put me on the fryer. And eventually I was slicing meats all in a matter of a couple months. But yeah, we worked in the fast food, or I guess fast casual industry for a summer right before college.
Now you have sort of a unique perspective because you did that in Tulsa, then you have North Carolina, and then you're in Austin. So you
Yeah.
have this barbecue trifecta triangle of experience. Did
Yeah.
you enjoy that job? Like, did you mind being in the kitchen, putting in those grunt work?
No, I mean, again, to be honest, I don't even know why I stopped mowing lawns. Maybe I was still doing lawns, and then that was just kind of the real quote unquote job. No, I enjoyed it. It was interesting. You meet a lot of different people at all walks of life. So saw some good, saw some bad, saw what not to do, what not to
Yeah.
aspire to do. So it was good. It was a good kind of crash course on life right before college started.
Yeah. Being a dishwasher was the only job I ever quit. Something about it. I just felt gross.
Yeah, luckily I got promoted like in the first week. I was like, all right, you're good enough at doing that. Just do coleslaw prep.
They could tell I had a bad attitude. I had to ask my parents if I could quit. I remember because they had a rule you couldn't quit anything. And I was
Yeah,
like, can I please quit being
mine,
a dishwasher? It's too
mine
hard.
as well. Same rule. Yeah, you started something, you had to finish it.
Now, okay, you eventually go to Oklahoma State.
Mhm.
At this time, you're walking in as a freshman. Do you have a vision for what you expect your professional life to look like at all? Do you know what you want to major in? Do you know what it looks like?
I did actually, surprisingly, because most kids I don't think know that when they walk in there. But my dad was in oil and gas, and he worked for the Williams companies, which was a big, still is a big oil and gas company headquartered in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And at the time, like commodities trading was kind of a big deal. There's a company called Enron that maybe some of the listeners know about.
Yeah.
Enron was kind of like the huge company that was in the commodities energy trading space. And Oklahoma State has a lot of wealthy oil and gas alumni. They had donated a bunch of money and had built actually a commodities trading floor in the College of Business. And there was a finance major with a commodities trading option. So that's what I went to go school do. I wanted to go work for Enron, Dynegy, Williams, some of those energy companies, and be a commodities trader. And ironically, I had an internship with Enron going into my, I guess it was my sophomore year of college, and I still have the email. I think it was an old Hotmail account, and they sent me a note. Hey, we're gonna cancel our summer internship program, and it was in lieu of the big scandal that actually ended up happening. And then obviously, the rest is history. But yeah, once that happened, that whole market kind of blew up for a little bit, and didn't think that was the right place to go pursue a career. I didn't even know if it would be a career. It has since bounced back. But yeah, I switched my major. I went from finance with a commodities trade option to marketing. And the reason why I did this, Kevin, I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but it was the easiest business major with the most females. That's why I made the switch to marketing.
So I did the same. I went to the University of Wisconsin. They have a very good kind of real estate finance program. That's their big angle. And there's a lot of math. I wasn't super into pushing myself at school at that time, and so made the same switch to marketing. So you're not alone. Were they trading real capital like in the college? How does that actually work? Or is it?
Yeah, they would trade. Yeah, I mean, I think summer the projects you'd get some money to trade with, and you could probably raise money. Again, it kind of blew up right before my core finance commodities trading classes were going to start. It happened literally going into my junior year, or maybe it was the spring of my sophomore year when the whole Enron scandal happened. But yeah, so the whole thing kind of blew up. But yeah, they were people trading on campus, and it was part of the curriculum.
All right, so you're studying marketing in females, and then you eventually do make it. You make it out, and can you tell us about your first real job once you get into the working world?
Yeah, I got super lucky. So again, I was I did the marketing thing because it was the easiest major, and then I had the idea I'd go to law school, and so that was kind of what I was studying for the LSAT and was starting to do kind of pre-law type stuff in college, and I was going to go to law school. But then I just kind of got tired of school, and I was like, let's go get a job, and I can always go back to law school. You can always go back, right? So my best friend from college, still my best friend today, was working for Cisco Systems in a training program in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's like, man, you'd be perfect for this. Like you like to talk to people. People like you. You like sales. But I had no clue about technology. I couldn't even spell Cisco. And but he talked me into at least interviewing, and had the opportunity to fly out there. And they did kind of college days where you meet a bunch of people from all over the country that are interviewing for this program, and had the privilege to get an offer to join. It was a year-long training program in North Carolina. Got super lucky, working for a big company like that back in their heyday. Really, this is the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Great training, great people, learned what good looked like, great fundamentals. I mean, it was, to be honest, like a perfect place to start your career. Was there for 11 years. So it was a good run.
And so you're selling right away. Do you remember like an early deal or an early sale that was successful, and you're like, okay, maybe I can do this?
Yeah. So the first year, again, they call it, it's like a training program. And again, when I went through it, they flew people from all over the world. So we had a cohort from Canada, Mexico, Australia, I think even like somewhere in Asia too. I think they brought in some people from Asia. So it was a huge global program. And it was all there in North Carolina. They have a huge campus there. And so you learn a lot about, the sales 101. And then you learn that at the time, Cisco had like 5 products. Now they've got probably 500. But you're learning how to sell each type of product, and you're learning kind of value selling. And they even had like an etiquette class where they would teach you how to like cut, food the right way, and where your utensils should be. I mean, it was a legit full on training program to prepare you for sales. And after about 6 months, and they kind of put you in inside sales, they'd kind of line you up with a field team out in the field. I got lined to Chicago, and you'd start kind of doing kind of cold calling, business development type stuff. They don't really have a BDR program like they do nowadays, but that's kind of what you were doing. It was like inside sales, help account managers and with their deals, renewals, whatever it may be. So you do that for about 6 months as you continue to learn and get trained, and then eventually get into the field. And I got lucky again. I had some great leadership in Chicago. That's where I eventually first field job was in Chicago Enterprise, and learned from some great people. And yeah, it was fortunate, Kevin. Had some close some deals early on, kind of get that confidence, get that momentum, make some good money, and then the rest is history. It just scaled.
Is there a particular deal or experience in those early days where you remember either thinking like, "Oh, this is something different than I thought it was," or the opposite, where it's like, "I this clicks."
Well, so ironically, today is my 20th anniversary of meeting my wife. So we met actually 20 years ago today in Chicago on an NFL draft night at a mutual friend's birthday party. I remember early on dating her. She was over at my house. We were watching TV or something, and I just checked my phone. This is pre-iPhone too, by the way. That's how long ago this was. Cisco gave us like these like old trio little mobile devices that had your email on it, and I get this email, and it was a commissions report, and I had a big sale. I remember doing a big deal, and I remember like calculating the commission in my head, and it was more money than she'd make her entire year in like marketing
Wow.
or PR or whatever she was doing at the time. And I remember just thinking, man, you can really build a successful career in sales if you're good at it. And you get, and
Yeah.
a lot of it's luck and timing, but just the amount of money you could make in tech sales, like I had that early. As a 24, 25-year old, getting that kind of opportunity, and it was awesome. So I think it just builds that confidence that you can make a career out of this, and you don't have to go back to law school. You don't have to go do something else if you don't want to, because you can make a really good career in tech sales. And again, it was literally an email I got on a couch one night, and it was like more than she could make an entire year. It's a pretty powerful moment, I remember.
Absolutely. That will move you for sure. How about the converse? Do you remember an early experience where a customer deal didn't go the way that you wanted to, or you got punched in the face doing anything in particular?
Yeah, yeah. So Chicago, I'd say it's a very livable city compared to some. And obviously, you said you went to UW Madison, so you kind of know those people that can be very friendly. But some Chicago people can be a little rough. And I remember one time I had I just learned my lesson the one time, the only time I ever did this. But I had a customer come in for like a kind of a customer briefing, and we're hosting probably four-ish customers. And I ordered the food. I ordered deep dish pizza, sausage, and I forget what else, meatballs or pasta with meatballs or something like that. And I remember one of the guys was a vegetarian, and he ripped me like to shreds. Like, how
Oh
dare you
man.
order something that I can't eat? I can't eat any of this. He threw a huge fit, and I just remember thinking, "Crap, he's right." Like, I did order like deep dish sausage pizza. He can't eat that, and maybe I didn't order anything else. And he was just so mad and livid. And I just remembered, all right, that's a teachable moment. Don't ever not order something that everyone can eat, or have options. Have a salad, have a pizza, have a pasta, have an appetizer, have multiple options, even though not everyone's going to eat all that food. That's part of it. Part of that's wasteful. At least you're preparing. Be prepared, or ask in advance what people want. But I just remember, yeah, I remember feeling as low as you could be because I screwed up, and I didn't know any better at the time. Again, at the time, I'm a 24, 25-year-old kid. I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So that was very memorable. But yeah, a lot of that. You'd get some very unhappy customers. You'd get some very. Cisco was coming out with new technologies, right? And so when you'd come try to introduce something new, it was very, very bleeding edge, and at the time very transformational. You'd get customers say, "There's no chance I'll do that. It's just you're too early
Hmm.
in the game." So then you have to figure out how to rebuttal, and how to answer those questions, and start placing some fear, uncertainty, doubt, and maybe not adopting something new and different. And again, you get to learn to spin a lot, especially early days in my career. I learned a lot.
Now you're obviously good at it because you stayed at Cisco for I think 11 years.
Mhm.
And so, what's the best part about staying at the same company for 11 years right out of the gate?
Well, I think no one does that anymore. That's one thing I have learned, especially post COVID. Like, I interview people every single week for jobs, and no one stays anywhere 11 years anymore. Like, it's very rare. So I feel like that was a cool experience to be able to stay somewhere in a good company for build your career, learn the fundamentals. I probably stayed too long, to be honest.
Mhm.
But again, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that experience, and got promoted, at the highest level by the time I left, from a sales perspective. So it was great. Continue to grow and develop. And I think I've always told people too, once you stop developing and growing, probably time to move on. But yeah, it was awesome, and very fortunate to have 11 really, really good years there. And then multiple geographies too. Like, I started kind of in North Carolina, then went to Chicago, went to Kansas City, another good barbecue place, or
That's right.
barbecue town, and then to Austin. All right, covered the DoD, enterprise, commercial, like public sector. Like, I did the whole gamut, right? And so get experience a lot of things. And again, now when I had to sell to public sector, I've had that experience. If I have to sell to the DoD, I've had that experience. I certainly know how to sell to commercial enterprise. That was most of my time at Cisco. But again, you learn a lot during that 11 years. So I was pretty proud of that.
And so, what was the most, maybe once you do kind of leave the mothership and you move on to something else, what was the most surprising thing of your next iteration?
I'd say how how difficult it is to open doors when you're at a high growth company, startups, early stage. Doesn't really matter if you don't have a household name. NetEnrich is a great example of that. We're not a household name yet, so it's hard. It's hard to get at bats. It's hard to get people to lean in and take a meeting. At Cisco, it was always expected. Like, you're Cisco, like, you're going to go get a meeting. It's probably harder now to get meetings at Cisco, especially in certain technologies, than it was back then. But anyone would want to take a meeting with you at Cisco. So it was hard. It was harder to. It's harder when I left Cisco to get those at bats. But what I'll tell you though is I fell in love with that. I fell in love with that grind. I fell in love with that hustle. Every day is a different day. Like, my first job right after Cisco was a startup, and I was the marketing guy. I was the business development guy. I was the channel guy. I was the sales guy. I was the leader. Like, I did it all. I had to go build everything from scratch. And I thrived in that. I thrived and really found out I was a builder. And it was hard, very difficult, but so rewarding. And so that's really I think my biggest lesson was again, it's never going to be as easy as it was at Cisco, but every day is going to be different. Every day is going to be very rewarding. And when you do win, it's so much more meaningful.
Where does that come from, do you think, thriving as a builder? Because that can be chaotic, right? If you're the marketing person and the salesperson, did you know that you would be ready to embrace that chaos? Or is that something that you found out through that process?
Yeah, I definitely didn't know. Definitely didn't know I'd like it as much. I don't know. Maybe there's some highs and lows in sales, certainly, and I have experienced some highs and lows at Cisco. Maybe you internalize it more because you're expected to win more. When you're a Cisco or someone with that market share. But again, if you're a startup, you're trying to build everything from scratch. When you do win, again, like I said, it's more meaningful. And I don't know. I just thrive in that chaos and that grind and that hustle. And there's just so much good talent around you too when you eventually can build the team. And really, it was kind of hiring and developing and kind of building the team. I really fell in love with that. Building a culture of winning, building just again, people that have your back. And when you're smaller, you're in the foxhole together. Like, again, it's just tighter. It's a more meaningful bond. And I'm still very close to a lot of the people that were my very first startup. And then after that, I went to a company that was kind of in their growth phase and moving from perpetual licenses to a subscription ARR model. And I'm still, texting buddies with a lot of the people from that company too. So I don't know, just smaller companies, you can kind of build a little bit more of that, team environment and culture. And it was intoxicating.
Absolutely. And so I want to talk about that team leading. So that startup right after Cisco, that's your first time you were responsible for leading people. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What was it like for you early trying to figure out what that means? You come from a big culture with a lot of probably baked processes on how to lead, how talent comes in. When you're first kind of trying to figure that out at your first couple gigs after Cisco, what's that like?
Yeah, I would say it's trying to find the right profile, and I'm trying to struggle with again finding the right talent, the right profile. Ironically, I'm advising a company right now. I've invested in an AI startup headquartered here in Austin as well, and he sent me some profiles of some sellers. And again, I'm looking at these profiles, and they're all big company like experiences. I'm like, dude, you're a high growth, early stage startup. I wouldn't roll the dice on someone that's had experience at Fortune 50 kind of companies. It's just too risky. So it's trying to find the right profile. So I learned that, early at the startup is again, you're not always going to get the best talent either. Again, if they have opportunities to go to more name brands and maybe they can pay more, or more, at least more consistent or less risk, you got to really find the right person that wants to build something, wants to be hungry, wants to be a grinder. And again, I think you got to have a clear hiring profile and stick to your guns. But it may take longer to find that right person, that right fit. So again, I learned that early as you're building a team, trying to find the right resources for each skill set you're trying to find. It's hard. It can be very, very hard. But again, when you get it right, again, it's very rewarding.
So you're obviously now a CRO. So what has changed about your leadership style from those early days all the way to now?
I'd say again, I tend to be I'd say kind of the cheerleader type. Again, very encouraging, like to coach, like to develop, like to give encouragement, good feedback, right, and want to improve people. But again, I don't have as much time to do that anymore. Right. I do enjoy that part of the job, but again, I have to be super data driven. Like we gotta again understand where we're winning, why we're winning, the metrics, all the data. Again, that's most of a CRO's job sometimes, forecasting the business, making sure it's repeatable. So I don't have as much time to potentially coach and develop as I'd like, but I really enjoy that part of the job. And again, I think the team wants that and needs that from a sales leader. And I've got other leaders on the team too that can help with that. But I think that's something that I think goes for we take that for granted, especially, the younger in career type people. They really need coaching. They really need development. They need that reassurance. And again, little tasks too. Like, and then they could do something small. It's again kind of part of your job description, but they need that kind of attaboy and that kind of thumbs up and that coaching and just a shout out that, hey, you did something right, you did it well, just to motivate them and other people. So I think that kind of natural cheerleader in me, I think that's what I'm good at that. I like doing that. I'm inspirational, motivational, but I just don't have as much time anymore. And so, I got to figure out other people that can do that for me.
What do you think is the biggest change from going from, and maybe it's not from your journey, but I'm sure you've observed this in others as well, is the role of the CRO is still relatively new, I would say. And there's executive sales leaders, and then there's CROs. What do you think is the biggest change of going from one to the other?
I'd say if you're to be a really good CRO, you've got to work well with your other executives. You got to work well with product. You got to work well with your CFO, right? Because you're going to have a lot of asks. You have to work well with marketing. Make sure that if you don't own marketing, you work well with them, and they're part of your go-to-market motion. Again, I think you just have to work really well across the aisle with your peers and other executives to get stuff done. Again, a really good salesperson, a really good sales leader, like, again, they kind of stay in their own lane, but they don't maybe help influence the product direction or the feature requests from their customers, or maybe they're not helping with marketing campaigns. They're probably not asking the CFO for as many favors because maybe they have someone else doing that for them. But I think a really good CRO, sometimes a really good politician, right? You have to work well across the aisle to get stuff done.
Is there a skill that you've developed now that you see yourself using on the day-to-day that you wouldn't have predicted when you kind of look back to the kid coming out of Oklahoma State?
It's a good question. I think just transparency is one. Like, again, just be really honest and transparent, especially with your peers, your other executives that you're trying to get stuff done with, on the why. Right? If I'm asking for a certain discount, there's probably a reason for it. Right? Maybe it's competitive. Maybe it's, hey, this is a great opportunity with a new partner. We're trying to get them motivated, excited, and get some early wins. Like, may have to go do this, or throw a little extra discount margin to the partner. Here's the reason why we're doing that. So again, just be very transparent, very direct. I've learned that's easier said than beating around the bush or being vague, and then 2 days later, 3 days later, go back and basically make the same request, now a little bit more direct. So again, I think just being really, really direct and transparent, and not only with your own team, but your leaders you're working with. I think that's really, really important. I don't think I realized that right away as a sales leader.
And how about your own development? What is something that you're trying to get better at now, even though you've sort of reached kind of the pinnacle for where you think of an executive sales leader eventually goes to the CRO seat? Like, what are you still looking at as like, okay, I need to figure this out?
I think, again, leveraging AI and how we can automate certain things, and leveraging agentic use cases. And again, like, my email is an absolute disaster right now, right? I need some help there. I'm making sure we can automate certain things and clean that up and probably respond. And there's tools now out there that they can do some of that stuff. Yeah. We're trying to automate a lot of our outbound and inbound motion from our business development teams and our marketing teams. Again, we've got some tools we're looking at to give me some more data-driven kind of metrics and some dashboards that I can kind of query and ask certain questions and kind of get some data-driven stuff. So I'm not asking RevOps or digging into Salesforce for too long. It's just right there at your fingertips. So again, I just think leveraging AI, how that can help improve our go-to-market motion, and just me as a leader. That's what I'm really trying to figure out now.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned you've interviewed a lot of candidates through the years and are even doing so now. When you're talking to candidates, is there something that you think folks are getting wrong about coming forward to a sales profession, something that's misunderstood?
I think it's really misunderstood just how hard it is and how difficult it is. Like, a lot of people think, especially in cyber, I'm in cybersecurity, like, people think, oh, it's such a hot market. It's got to be, just booming because there's a lot of money in there, a lot of companies in it, but that's more competition for everybody, right? I mean, The average SaaS, AE's like hitting 40% of quota. In cyber, it's about the same, right? So again, like, even, the big companies in the space, they're struggling to hit quota. It's not easy. So I think account executives, especially, they've grown quickly. Like, we talked, we're interviewing a lot of, like, younger, earlier in career people that were BDRs like 3 or 4 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And now they're in maybe their first closing role. Now they want to get into enterprise, right? That meteoric rise, like, I don't think that you had to earn it back in the day. Like, it took a while. Mm-hmm. There's like necessary steps. And eventually you got into enterprise. It just didn't happen overnight. Nowadays, I think these candidates they're getting to that level quicker. They're expecting higher compensation at that age, and then again, I think they're expecting to win more often. And I just don't think that that's real. And then all the venture capital that's in the industry inflates OTEs, right? So you can, hey, I'll give you this really high OTE, but I'm going to give you a quota you can't hit. So the OTE is meaningless. But again, I'm competing against that. I got to compete against that high growth startup that just raised a couple $100 million that can throw out a little more cash than I can. So that's tough. It's hard to compete there. And then candidates expect that. And they expect to win early and make money, and it's hard. It takes some time sometimes to build this.
So you obviously can't always advise candidates, but if you had someone you were mentoring, maybe who was kind of in that position, early sales career or something like that, what would you tell them to either take more seriously or stop?
I'd say, and I tell candidates this a lot, like you find a good company, a bigger company, especially in whatever space you're in. Find a good company, a market leader. And just grow and develop and stick around, right? Again, I said earlier, like not many people have long careers anymore. But if you had 5 years at Fortinet or 5 years at CrowdStrike or 5 years at Palo Alto, I want to talk to that person, right? Because they've been in a bigger company. They've seen what good looks like. They see good fundamentals. They've probably developed a little bit and grown a little bit. Now maybe they want to go to a startup or high growth or go build something. But I want to talk to that profile. So I always tell people, hey, if you find that, stay there, grow, develop, learn. Once you stop learning, once you stop growing, once you stop maybe making the money you want to make or don't want to move into leadership, okay, then maybe it's time to look. But don't always kind of job hop and chase unless it's not out of your control. But again, if you got a good thing going, I'd say stick it out. Grow, develop. Someday as a hiring manager, I'm going to look at a profile and say that guy's been at XYZ for 7 years. Like, why? That sounds awesome. Like that never happens anymore. No one stays around 7 years unless you're doing well, you're performing, you're making good money. That probably means that's a pretty good employee. If they were at 3 companies in 7 years, there's maybe some reasons behind that. I'd have to double click on some of that stuff. But again, a 7-year tenure these days, that's super rare. So I'd encourage people to stick it out as long as they're growing and developing and making money.
I love that. It's good advice. Okay. My last question is a very selfish question. I always ask all of our interviewees, what's something outside of work that you keep recommending to people? So it could be book, podcast, TV show, a fitness class that you like, just something that you find yourself recommending to people.
I'd say travel. Just go out and see new places, experience new cultures, cuisines. This world's so big. Just go travel. I've done that with my kids too. I've got an 11-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son. And my daughter's been to, I think, 15 countries now.
Oh, cool.
My son's a couple behind her, I should say. But go out and see the world, travel. Those are very memorable experiences. They'll see other parts of the world, different way people live, eat. I don't know. Again, I think that's my biggest recommendation to people. Just go out and see the world, go travel.
Do you have a country that worked specifically well for your kids that it just like that trip took for whatever reason and it's number one on the list?
Copenhagen, Denmark, and we're actually going back this summer. My daughter said that she's going to move there someday. It's her favorite country. And at the time, she's a 10-year-old saying she's going to move to Copenhagen, which was cool to hear. But I'd say Copenhagen's amazing. Great food, the weather, just the people are great. It's a very walkable, bikeable city. We did the polar plunge and jumped in the canal, even though it was the summer. The water's still super, super cold, but yeah, it was just an awesome time. And so we're actually going back this summer. Copenhagen, I'd say, is high on the list.
Of Copenhagen. I've not been there with my kids, but that is a great recommendation. And Ryan, we know you have a lot going on, so thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Really appreciate it.
Anytime. I appreciate it, Kevin.